welcome again to Crush Your Mountain Wellness Podcast. I'm so excited to dive into the world of Qi Gong and Reiki with our amazing guest, Erin Tracy. Now, Erin is an expert in these powerful healing practices, bringing a wealth of knowledge and experience to our discussion. She graduated Magna Cum Laude from Wellesley College with a BA in psychology and education, and earned a Master of School Administration, an MSA from the University of California at Chapel Hill. Before her journey into Qi Gong and Reiki, she made a significant impact as the school director for BrightPath Education and served as an educator and public school administrator in Wake County Public Schools. Erin's dedication to education was recognized when she was selected as a North Carolina Principal Fellow in 1996, working as an assistant principal in 2000. Now, she's going to share some extraordinary points with us, so get ready for an exciting and enlightening, energetic conversation as we explore the transformative power of Qigong with the incredible Erin Tracy. Amazing. Erin Tracy, and welcome to Crush Your Mountain Wellness, because I have so many questions about Qigong and also Reiki, but now Qigong is my bigger interest because I've been seeing that online, and I'm really curious, and so are my guests, about number one, the origin of it, and number two, how does the health aspect develop in it? First of all, Tracy, what drew you to Qigong, first of all?
Sure. I love answering this. I was not seeking it in particular, but I had a number of years of lots of different annoying health conditions, rashes and soreness and digestive issues, lots of anxiety, trouble sleeping. And in my late 30s, and these were annoying and they were slightly disruptive, and I would do things either from Western medicine perspective or, from natural interventions to try to make it better. However, in my late 30s, my mother was living with us under hospice care, and it was pretty stressful. And her nurse would come every week, and one week she said, sit down, I want to take your blood pressure. She always checked my mother over, and she took my blood pressure, and it was very high. It was very alarming. And I just went, it's fine. I'm fine. I was thinking I'm too young to have such high blood pressure. And I think I said something like, oh, I'm sure it was the soup I had for lunch. It was probably very high in sodium. And then the next week she came, she said, sit down, I'm taking your blood pressure. And it was, again, very high. And she said, you really should go get that checked out. And so I began to, actually I went seeking some help with the chronic pain I was experiencing. I was an athlete. I used to do triathlons, and I still was exercising regularly. So, and stretching, but nothing was really helping that. And then acupuncture, trying to do the blood pressure thing could kill me though, right? I could stroke out in my 40s if I wasn't going to get that under control quickly. But Western medicine didn't work. All sorts of interventions we tried were not working for that either. And I did get the information that I needed to calm down. I needed to learn some different responses. Like, we have these stress management techniques that are just talked about all the time, in our culture. And they all sounded great. And sometimes I could think about these sorts of things like, don't take what other people do personally. You need to just stop and breathe. Going to yoga, that's supposed to be a great stress release, but it really didn't work. And I really didn't calm down even in yoga class. But I did have one yoga instructor, and she developed with her teacher, who is now one of my teachers, a form of yoga that had Qigong principles in it. I didn't know what that meant, but she offered the class in a workshop, and it was a completely different experience than the yoga that I had been doing. It looked the same. There were just a few little things different in some of the breathing and things like that, but that was it. And so I was very intrigued by the difference. And when I'm going to shorten this story, from there, her teacher, Master Owen Wei, was coming to Raleigh in a couple of months or something, and I signed up to take his entry level Pangu Shenggong. And it was so simple. He taught us the whole thing in 90 minutes, and half that time his words were being translated by his daughter. And then we practiced it. And I felt something very different. And he said at the end of the class, he said, I encourage you to do this every day for 30 days and just see what happens. And, part of my anxiety and overwhelm is that I'm a type A person, and I always want to do things right, or I'm a lot more loose about this now, this way of thinking. But I said, okay, well, I'm going to do it for 30 days. And, I paid my money, I learned this, I'm going to see what happens. Well, within 2 weeks, my blood pressure was normal, staying normal. And then I noticed some other things happening. So my introduction into Qigong was this practice of Pangu Shenggong. And I'm quite sure it has saved my life, and not just that way that I just described, but in other ways also. And it certainly has allowed me to grow and to heal things. I really don't have any more ailments. I don't have chronic pain anymore, but I can eat pretty much whatever I want within reason. And I'm definitely happier, low, very low stress, things happen. But that experience really, it got me thinking, like, okay, if this can do this for me, what else could it do? And it led eventually, 6 months later, to me taking a medical Qigong class, a year-long class with another one of Master O's advanced students. And then that led me into doing what I do now for a living. And that was Paul Frazier. And he no longer lives in the Raleigh area, but he's on the West Coast now. So we still keep in touch a bit. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's pretty cool though. So help us to understand though. You went into a medical Qigong.
Mhm.
So now, what is the difference then between Pangu Qigong? And I'm going to assume that there are a host for that. From what I understand, there are thousands of Qigong variations. But now, what defines medical Qigong from regular or just Pangu Qigong?
Sure. Let me back up a bit. So Qigong itself, and I think you and I maybe talked about this briefly back in April, whenever it was, it's a giant overarching topic category. It's like food. When you say food, that's like so many things. So and really this term we have started to use this in the last 150 years, maybe, like the Chinese as well, using this term Qigong. Loosely, it means very loosely, the cultivation of your life force energy, the energy in your body, the cultivation, the working of it, the exercising of it. But what has happened, and this is again a Western 20th, 21st century interpretation of this category, food, Qigong, okay? So there's like medical Qigong, there's a martial Qigong, of which Tai Chi is a part, and some other forms as well. That's one that we hear of the most. You could say there's like Qigong practices that improve your intellectual abilities, your thinking abilities. Qigong that allows you to have more access to like intuition and wisdom, even religious Qigong. So there's these different sort of like schools, categories. So acupuncture would be a part of the medical Qigong that I mentioned a minute ago. And I do not practice acupuncture, but the foundations of acupuncture come from the medical category, the subcategory of Qigong. So the course I took, we did learn a lot about acupuncture meridians and acupuncture points, how to sense Qi in other people and how to decide how to support someone else. And I know I don't think we're planning to talk about this today, which is totally fine because there's so many things. But basically, to learn how with my, and it comes from my own practice, be able to support someone else in their own health and healing, even without touching them. It's something, you know, in the beginning, I did do a practice that they were in the room with me, but now I live all over the place, and so the practice has evolved into a different sort of thing. I still practice the Qigong that I learned in March of 2012. So it's 14 years now. I practice every day, and I have not ever missed a day in those years. Some days I will practice a lot more if I'm working, or if I'm getting ready to be in a high energy situation like this one. So when you ask me about what it is, all Qigong that you mentioned that there's hundreds, if not thousands, of methods or practices of Qigong, and people, and all the time people are even like changing old ways of old kind of standard Qigong into something that suits them, and hopefully they're doing this with inner guidance and study and and that sort of thing. But all of the practices have an original intention, I would say, of balancing the body. And we would say yin yang in the opposites, that we need everything, but in a balance. And we are forever changing that balance in interacting with the world, with our thoughts, with what we eat, with as we, even, go to check the mail or go for a long hike or drive through traffic. It's those things change in us. And so we know of many practices that can help us balance that. So, meditation, yoga, eating good food, exercise that's good for our body, not an exercise that's, I work with a lot of women who are in their late 40s, 50s, 60s, and the kinds of exercise that they did when they were in their 20s and 30s, if they were intense exercisers, it's not such a great idea to continue to do really intensive exercise. For most people, not all people, as they get older, there's a different need for the body. So anyway, all those things change. So Qigong is different than all of that I was just mentioning in that. And again, most of my experience with Qigong is with the Pangu Shenggong, and I haven't found anything else that fills you back up and balances, brings back a resiliency. There may be other things, but this is the one that I know well. And that is what allows us to continue to maintain good health, to bring things into harmony that may not have been, before. So long-winded answer, but tell me what else, how else I can help.
No, well, that's very good, because basically what you're saying is that Qigong in and of itself is the awareness and management of our body's natural life force and energy. So
Sure.
so you're essentially saying that in all the variations, these subtleties allow for an individual to manipulate their energy to the optimum state, whether it be for health, whether it be for increased mental functions, cognitive function, intuitive function. So that's really a powerful thing. And understandably, having worked with individuals on that level and having adopted a few movement practices myself, I can tell you this, I can feel a very marked difference in my body just doing the simple movements. And I guess that's what I love about it. I like the fact that you mentioned how, this is not Tai Chi. This is not a religious thing in and of itself. However, there are aspects that can be adopted for martial art. There's an aspect that can be adopted for so many other things. And that's kind of true of a lot of different modalities, be it Western or Eastern practice or lifestyle perspective, paradigm, if you will.
Sure.
Tell us this. How can it be integrated into, say, daily life?
Mm-hmm. So, in my opinion, in doing this and working with individuals too, to integrate not only like a practice of Qigong, but also like a sense of returning to joy, happiness, that sort of thing, positive well-being, good health. That there is an inherent invitation to not simply do the practice. So that to me, what I found, the practices that are of the highest in the highest integrity, in the highest vibration, they will be more than just movement, more than just maybe doing the breath with the movement, but also an invitation to open your heart, to become more calm, to be humble, and still working hard and being careful about what you do and like being present and that sort of thing. But it's, as far as integrating into your life, there's invitations like, okay, I've cultivated, I've done this, so maybe some practices that you've learned, or Pangu or other Qigong. So I'm calmer now that I've practiced. I notice this. I notice also, like in humility, that there's a place in a relationship, say, where there's not harmony. And so if we want to continue to grow and heal, then we would be open to seeing how we could have harmony in that relationship, as an example. I mean, it could be that you get up every morning and you do your practices and you feel really calm and you're ready for the day, and then you go get in traffic and you're just like, you're immediately sucked into the frenzy of all of that, and then you arrive at the office or wherever you're going and you're like and it's kind of like all canceled out. so and really bringing it in, so bringing it into your driving, bringing it into your relationships, into the food you're preparing, a sense of like being present and being calm, and maybe even thinking of the people that you're preparing it for, or thinking about how, if you're preparing it for yourself only, like how this can enhance my body, to be connected to, the molecules of the food in that way, the molecules and the other people that you're encountering. This general sense of seeking harmony, basically harmony and flow in the other things. And that, I sometimes when I'm talking to people, it just sounds bananas, I think, because we're so into, the news and social media, and we can get very unplugged from a lovely sense of harmony, as we look at those things. But you can also look at the news and still maintain a sense of peace.
We live in a society that tends to deal with separation, and when we think about the earth, the universe itself, and we can just go as far as looking at the work that's being done at the CERN Center there with various gravitational molecules, various subatomic quantum physics stuff. And when they look at things on that subatomic level, when they look at things on that quantum level, that literal energetic level, they see there's this incredible oneness of the universe, and that individuals, that people are not all that separate. The fact is, we might be concentrated balls of energy, if you will, but there is this connection of energies between us, as it were. And that's, whether be it neutrinos or the boson, the Higgs boson particle, or things like that, that are present, that flow through us, even as we sit here, separated by continents, and yet there's this connection. And so being aware of the oneness that we have allows for us to tap into that space and learn that, hey, we're not all that great. We're not all that much. But can't we be joyful in the fact that we are who we are, that we are part of a beautiful whole, okay, that comes about it from an intent of creation, as it were. And that's why I was intrigued by this health practice, looking at individuals. High blood pressure is rampant. Type 2 diabetes is rampant. And I was wondering how those things can be positively affected, in other words, reduced or reversed by Qigong. And here you are, the very first thing you told me is you had high blood pressure, and you were able to get rid of it through this simple practice. Tell us a little bit more about your journey, and then we can move into how you utilize that energy manipulation to help others.
Sure. So to be completely honest and humble, my training will not be able to like give you medical reasons for it. However, what I understand, first of all, high blood pressure is when it doesn't respond to medication, it's a tricky thing in the human body to fix. And from what I understand, when we have when the practice of Qigong or Shen Gong, in the case of the Pangu, it gets at whatever it is out of balance. It's very intelligent. The practice is very intelligent, and the body's very intelligent. So when you do a practice that's inviting in this, centering connection with, we would say heaven and earth, or the creator and earth, or the universe and earth, whatever, it's, like I said, not a religion, so it's not about that. I wish I could tell you how it happened exactly. I just know that it did. When you and I first started to connect, there was an awful lot going on in my family. And there was a lot of moving parts, a lot of pieces. And I began to feel that old feeling of my blood pressure being up. And I've had people tell me, you can't feel that, but I remember what it felt like, and I was noticing that again. And I found my monitor, because I used to always have to take my blood pressure, and it was a little high. And I was like, gosh, I am really responding to these things that are mostly out of my control in a very high way. So, I have worked with some people with type 2 diabetes, or like people on the verge. And, oftentimes, our medical system has very good interventions for our Western medical system, but it can be very difficult to put those into place for some people. But when we calm the body down and bring things into balance, not only are those practical things you're able to do them, but the reasons that high blood pressure exists, type 2 diabetes, cancer, autoimmune, the reasons internally that they exist, basically your body can fix them. They can bring it into balance again. They can fight the thing that's out of balance, if that's what's called for, bring it into balance. I feel like there are protocols that I would do as a medical Qigong practitioner for someone who comes in with a certain ailment, diagnosis, or whatever. But even over the years, as I've practiced, that focus for me of like doing what I've been trained to do as far as a protocol, instead, I found myself like, okay, well, I know this, and I might use the Qi in that way, direct the Qi in that way. But ultimately what I do is I give it over to higher guidance, higher love. And in a way, it takes my intellect my ego, which is very important, out of it. So, as far as for people who are just practicing anything, and it doesn't really, Henry, you know this, there are some practices that I think are more efficient and more effective than others. However, with an open heart, with that humble desire to have peace with all that you interact with, to not mind anything that's happening, the body follows. The body begins to follow that. And whereas, something may not totally go away, it may come into a kind of balance that is more in flow, less pain, less symptoms, that sort of thing. Help get me back on track. I feel like I went off a little bit. Help me.
Well,
Did I answer your questions?
you went where your intuition led you.
Yeah,
And that's
apparently.
understandable. When it comes to the society that we live in, and this is really what it comes down to. Many times we encounter individuals who do have those symptoms, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes. Okay, okay, I found this happening with many of my clients. We change their eating lifestyle. So they're not on the highly palliative, over-salted, over-sugared, Frankenfood that's out there.
Very
right?
important. Yes.
Got them off of that. Then we maybe got them into doing some sort of exercise or what have you, but still they are dealing with a higher level of glucose. The blood pressure is still high, and that tends to be a challenge.
Sure.
With them. And we begin to delve into, well, what else is happening in life, in the environment? What people don't often think about is that we live in a state of fight or flight. And you mentioned that earlier, you see, and you're just getting in, driving into the car, and you have to be hyper aware. Well, your blood sugar is raised at that point. But now what happens when you come home? Oftentimes we come home and the children are bouncing off the walls. We got to get the cooking done. We have to go pick up the kids from daycare or soccer, or in some cases we have situations where the parents are at it, or if they're not at it, they're separated. And now you've got other things, you have other relationships, or you're a grandparent and you're dealing with that. All of these different things. And we get so used to and addicted to the pace, but we are in this constant state of battle, of retreat, of, in case of women, you might fawn. So you have the freeze, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And we're in those elevated states. And when we're in those elevated states, our blood sugars cannot normalize. Our blood pressure cannot normalize. And the only way to really deal with it is to remove ourselves or change our environments, if only for a little bit.
Sure. And even if we just do it here in the head. Yes.
So that's where, okay, going from the mind to the physical awareness of the energies in the body and moving in such a way that it calms the body, because the breath work with intention and the movement with intention is now not a matter of necessarily being involved with not involved in terms of worship, but in terms of focus, in terms of bringing yourself into the center of your mind, concentrating on the heartbeat and the rhythm and the connection to everything, and thereby calming the body, bringing that autonomic nervous system into control, into the parasympathetic phase. So now we can rest and digest. That's when the body now begins to calm down. Blood pressure begins to go down.
Totally.
Blood sugar goes down. That's why I thought this was a nice thing to add to a person's life. You don't have to light any candles. You don't have to burn any incense. We're not talking about any of that.
You don't know. You don't. If you want to, fine. I
Yeah,
actually don't. My partner's the one who remembers the candles all the time. It's very sweet, just to create a nice
he's incredibly
vibe.
romantic like me. So he and I will get along royally. You see,
Exactly.
you know.
Exactly. He's way more romantic than I am. It's very sweet. But you're getting at just the thing, actually, because what you just described are like, we do all these things, and then, even so, like, let's say the person, you, me, right, our clients, whatever, have the awareness that my life is chaotic. Oh my gosh, stop, push the stop button. I want to get off for a while, please. And yet, we can put things into our life that allow us to say, we come home from work, we tell the people that we are going to take a minute, and then we'll be with you or whatever. And sometimes you can do that. Sometimes if you have a toddler, you can't do that. So how do we deal with that? How do we so I'm going to give you a personal example again. When my mom was so she actually lived for 2 more years after, or maybe 2.5 more years, when, from the time I was telling you I had high blood pressure. And then I learned Qigong a few months, maybe 4 or 5 months before she died. And it was sad. We're still sad 12 years later, but there was something that was cultivated in me. And this is why Qigong, practices like Qigong, effective Qigong, simple Qigong, that's effective and powerful, can help people have this buffer zone, this resilience. So first the buffer zone, right? And then sometimes, like, we get to the point where, like, we use it all up, and it's like, you can't, you can't deal. You're yelling at people, or you're crashing, your body's crashing, your blood sugar shooting up, blood pressure, whatever. So, so if we use up our buffer, even if we've cultivated, then we can take, if we can take a moment to do a practice, and yes, 5 minutes breathing at your kitchen sink, it's useful. As I tell people, please keep doing that. If you're doing something like that, that allows you to, like, realize for a moment gratitude, realize for a moment that there actually isn't a fire or a tiger. It's just a lot. And there's, and I'm going to be able to handle it. I'm going to be able to handle what's important anyway. So, like, that place of finding the buffer zone and then refilling again in a way that's effective. So getting a good night's sleep, very effective. Eating great food, very effective. Exercise, very effective at the exercise that doesn't deplete you. So I always have to make that distinction. Those are great. However, as far as the soul, the spirit goes, even the energy in the body, the Qi, we'll call it. It is called Qi, from my point of view. Bolstering that back up again is the gift that most Qigong is. And you said you've had some experience with it. And so, sometimes, just it can be just enough to allow you to access your stress management thoughts. Oftentimes we know what to do, but we just aren't able to do it. And it's, no judgment there. And that's probably one of the first lessons that I learned, was to stop judging myself so much for where I was losing my mind, where I was, not being complete with something, where I just said, okay, there's an awful lot, and I'm gonna do the best I can with it. And I started giving myself a break, and that helped my health incredibly. Yeah.
What are the benefits to doing Qigong in natural settings?
Yeah, we talked about this. I do that just about every day. I leave and go take a walk, and my practice is I do a practice while I'm walking. Well, so my teacher, Master Owenwei, he speaks a lot about this, these old teachings about how we, like you were mentioning, all the atoms and the molecules, these are common to everything, the air we breathe, the plants, the food we eat. So when we go out and we're paying attention to nature in that way, it amplifies the benefits of any practice, really. But that being said, Henry, sometimes, we live in cities. Sometimes we can't, it isn't possible to get our feet on the ground in the dirt on that day, in that moment. And it can still be useful. I mean, I love, your work with the forest bathing, and we'll talk more about that later to give you a little plug. But you can if you've been in the forest, you can access the forest even when you're in the city. You can connect to that again, and that it's not as hard as you think. But once you have the experience, it's in you. But that being said, one of the suggestions I give to my clients who are struggling with something in life is, okay, leave the phone at home, go out somewhere away from people, or maybe if there's people, that's fine, but get out in nature and begin to look for what you're fascinated by. Get curious, observe, listen, smell, and let yourself be with that, be one with that, as you said, the oneness, feel the vibration of it all. And, even as I'm speaking about this, I can feel the chi in my hands, and if there's time at the end, I would love to help your listeners feel that in their own body. So I think
you're leading me on, or actually leading me in.
Sure.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
I would say, let's just talk about the city for a little bit. And being the city now, we have this in common. We are both at least residents, if only temporary or occasionally, in the city of Oaks, Raleigh, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the process of making some adjustments, by the time this program airs, I will actually be in the city of Crepe Myrtles. So yeah, which is not that far. It's Andrew, so that's not.
Okay, that's right.
But the thing is that I'm a Northerner. I'm born in New York, raised in New York. And one of the things I noticed that there are some areas, now we had access to parks everywhere. Okay, Hempstead Park, we went down to, of course, Central Park, everybody knows that, Tompkins Park, and that. But there are times when people cannot get there. But we forget that the city does not mean that there is no nature. When we're stepping outside and we don't have a backyard, but we have a terrace, or maybe we are stepping outside and it's daytime and you have daylight. Even if it's a cloudy day, it's still daylight. When we're doing that and we are tapping into the presence of that light and the enjoyment of that light and touching base with ourselves in the presence of that nature, we may hear certain noises. Okay, it's very interesting. One of my favorite composers who died just a few years ago, his name is Vangelis. He had an album called The City. And it was, I guess, a fabled city, a mythological city, but it wasn't so much anything other than his music coupled with subtle noises of this a city somewhere. But during the day, let's just say in Brooklyn, New York, it's very interesting. After the rush hour traffic and before the rush hour traffic, between those two early mornings and late afternoons, there is a certain peace that comes over the city, and there is a certain rhythm that's there. And there's the coming and goings of the vehicles and things of that nature. still. You can touch base with the clouds, the sunlight, and now you're in a totally different space.
Mm.
And you can use that to calm yourself, because nature does not mean that that the city is not there. Nature is everywhere. It just happens to be that the urban parts of it is just popped up. You know?
Yeah.
So anywhere you go, any person can take the time to have the mindfulness, and then connect that mindfulness with the natural flow of their bodies, the natural energies of their body. And so I think that's a really powerful thing. So you're not in Raleigh now. You're not in Knightdale now. So for those that are tuning in, and okay, because our previous conversation did not happen in this space. So where are you in the world?
We're in Spain, in Malaga province, but up in the mountains.
Wow.
So we can see the Mediterranean, but we are about half an hour from it, which is fine. We like the mountains. Yeah, and then when I'm in Raleigh, I'm on the Neuse River every day if I can be walking along the river. So yeah, and it's just a big. And, and like you were saying, if I can't get out that day, or we've been traveling with family, I have a sister who lives in Central Europe, and we've been in cities, and it's amazing what you can notice, even those sparrows who are, on the ground at the cafes, you watch, they have a whole community, a whole thing, and there's usually a tree or something. Yeah. So I'm a bit of a nomad.
No, that's true. There's nothing wrong with that, to experience the different spaces and places, so there's a beauty in that, and immersing yourself in a culture, That's why I love languages. It allows me to connect with the hearts of individuals, the hearts of others.
Sure.
The beautiful thing about the natural spaces is those unique things that take place. You mentioned the sparrows a little while ago. I don't know if you were here recently, you probably were, but we had the advent of the double locust plague.
Yeah.
We had this 13-year locust and the 17-year locust who showed up at the same time.
Yes.
But now, during that time, throughout the woods, by Lake Crabtree, you heard this. I will not call it eerie because it was not disturbing. At least not to me. Once you're just like, what's that noise? But it's almost like a whirring, whistling sound, and it was the sound of millions of these locusts, these cicadas, as they for a mate, as it were. They were because there's only the males that sing. There were a lot of males looking for women at that point.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That was
so cool.
Saturday night in the woods, I guess. I don't know. They're out partying, but there were a lot of them. But here's the beautiful thing: to have that sound added to the other beautiful sounds of the lake, of the woods, to see the eagles that were nested there in Lake Crabtree, and to just observe certain things, and just small things. I think it's Yadkin Park or Lake Wheeler.
Yes.
Okay, so there's the I think it's Yadkin's Mill.
Oh, Yates Mill, yes.
Yates Mill. I don't know where Yadkin from. Yates Mill.
Well, we have there's a Yadkin Road or something in Yadkin County, and
yeah. So Yates Mill, okay, and so they have this beautiful little park there, and there's a little trail there, and what I would do is take clients there, and or go there by myself. Well, going there by myself one day, and it's a rainy day, but now I'm just using that mindful period. And there's a point where you feel that beautiful connection with everything around you. And just these little tiny things you become grateful for, like noticing the hummingbird that just happens to fly by. And I don't know if you've heard of Rich Litvin, but I happen to have his book about coaching, and I had it with me. And on the cover was the silhouette of a hummingbird. So here I am with the hummingbird, and I'm looking at, and I look up, and there's a hummingbird that flies in. It's like, wow, does it mean anything to anyone else? No, but for you're in those spaces of connection with the earth, and things have personal significance to you.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is what you just said is a great example. Like, what if hummingbirds were looking to get your attention? I mean, if we were all one, like, why not? Why not? I find that very fun to play with.
Yeah.
Just fun. And maybe, if I'm seeing the same animal or something I don't usually see, I'm like, oh, this is cool. And one of the things that is been part of my training is to stay in the question, stay in the wondering. Don't get narrow in your interpretations and in your points of view, in your judgments. But so I might look up hummingbirds and think, oh yeah, I like this message. I'm gonna go with it. But and other people would say, well, that's total crap. Well, maybe it is, maybe it's not. But in the moment, it's brought me joy to play in that way with the natural world to see what what shows up. So
absolutely, there's we look forward in my personal practice, spirituality. We look forward to a time where the planet itself would be replenished, and we all are connected to the planet in our worship of God. And so and the thing is that it's a bringing back to what once was. So if that's the case, then one can actually have a measure of that, not the full effect, because there's a lot that has to happen for a full effect, but a measure of that for oneself. Tell us, you mentioned a couple of things that can be done. Are there simple movements that a person can do just to bring themselves into a calmer space?
Sure. So there's a few things with breath that are coming to mind immediately. This is translated a couple of different ways. You can call it the small heavenly circle or the microcosmic orbit, something like whatever. But basically the practice, if you're feeling kind of like bugged, like irritated, this is a very nice breath to do. And we can do it now if you like. Can I talk you through it? It'll take like 2 minutes. Well, you're muted now. I can't hear you.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Okay, great. So instead of just breathing, you add a little visualization to it. Close your eyes and focus on the tailbone. And imagine that you can follow the breath. And imagine that you can move the breath from the tailbone up the sacrum, up the spine, up over the top of the head, down the front midline of the face, and end the inhale on the upper lip. I'm going to sort of describe it and then we'll do it. And then as the exhale comes, it starts on the lower lip and goes down the front midline of the body, around the pelvic floor, back up to the tailbone. So the exhale ends at the tailbone. And then as the inhale comes, it rises up the spine, over the top of the head, down the front midline of the face. The inhale ends on the upper lip, and the exhale starts from the lower lip down the front midline of the body, coming around the pelvic floor, bottom of the torso, back up to the tailbone. So you're making this circle of breath that goes all the way around, basically the midline of the body, starting and ending at the tailbone. So inhale, as the inhale comes up the spine, over the top of the head on the midline, down the front midline of the face to the upper lip. And then when the exhale comes, it goes down the front midline of the body, around the pelvic floor, the bottom of the torso, back up to the tailbone. And so do that, a few of those on your own, at your own pace, with your own breath, just imagining that you can, in your mind's eye, see the breath as it moves up, over the top of the head to the lip, and then down from the bottom lip, front midline of the body, pelvic floor to tailbone again.
Wow.
So yeah, you can and just do 5 or 10 of those or so. And again, also with your intention. So intention is in Qigong and in probably lots of other practices too. It's one of the most powerful things. So your attention, you can put your attention on something, but if you have so you put your attention on what I just guided you through. If you pair that with the intention, like, I would love to feel less bugged right now, to feel less ruffled. That would be lovely. That would be wonderful. So just doing the breath will probably help. But if you also are willing and have that intention, I'd also like, so a lot of times, like there's like, let's say there's something somebody else is doing. So that's not within your control, but what they are doing is affecting you, or at least there's a perception that it's affecting you, or you're irked by it, or you're judging it, or whatever. So sometimes we are not aware that if we would like to not be bugged by this, but the way we want that to happen is for them to change. So when we have the wisdom to remember that we can't change another person, that would be a manipulation, even trying, right?
Right.
But instead, if we can open our hearts and say, like, I want to change the energy around this, so our intention along with it is important. So it's not just what we do, but how we do it, how open our heart is. This is another concept of when I teach the Qigong, and any practice you do, bringing that to it will make a difference. When we do something with a broad heart versus a narrow heart, narrow intention, it's the effects and the results are greater. They are, yes, they're in a higher vibration. So
I hear people often say, when they're doing something, put your heart into it, or put your mind to it. And basically, that's what this is. It's just in a more gentle way of doing it. So the concept is already there, but we just don't make the connection. Often, many times when we're putting our heart into something, putting our mind into something, it's almost in a forceful way.
yes.
But really, if we're going to change the dynamic of a situation, particularly in dealing with us, I have a particular person in mind. The idea is to gently build the love for that person within yourself.
Sure.
Even the various forms of love start with a cold pot, and the fire begins to slowly boil. But it takes a while for it to, it's a gentle thing. Even if you turn it on full blast, it's not going to hit you at, 212 degrees Fahrenheit right away. But it begins at a cooler pace. So when we are focusing on the gentle emanations of love for the person, Pick one quality and focus on that. See yourself valuing the quality of the individuals.
Beautiful. Yeah.
That's how it builds. So again, are we talking about some sort of form of worship? No, we're not. We're talking about a way of utilizing our energies in a mindful way that builds not just our health, but also our relationships as well. And so I wanted to ask you this one question that I ask all my guests. What does it mean to you to crush your mountain?
I love this question. So it means, first of all, make friends with the mountain. Treat the obstacle or the mountain as your greatest teacher. And then, and then look for where the door is open, where the walking is easier. Yes, take the path that is there in front of you. If there is no trail, if there's a rock slide, don't go that way. Go the way that's in the flow and in the friendly, because there's always a way. It may still be hard work, but you will know if the going is not safe, if the going isn't possible, then it's time to find a different route. But in all things, look at the mountain as your greatest teacher, as your, a worthy obstacle, basically. That's what it means to me. Like, there's no need to fight. There's no need to win in that way, like overcome, like as far as like making it that you have to do like this all the time and fight every obstacle, but instead like, you're a worthy obstacle. What can I learn from you? So that's what that means. Did it get cut off? Are you still there?
Oh, we're still here. We're kicking it.
Oh, good.
Well,
good,
I got to tell you, I love that perspective, because the fact of the matter is, I believe it was Bruce Lee that said, "Be water." But he wasn't the only one that said that, to be water.
Yep. Be the water.
And when you think about a river, the river does not fight the mountain. The river merely rubs and strokes the mountain gently and flows around the mountain gently. And before you know it, you've got sand.
You've got what? You've got
sand.
Yes.
You have sand. You have a path through the mountain. You have all these beautiful things. So absolutely, I value that. And I want to thank you again for bringing that perspective and telling us a little bit about the practice of Pangu Qigong. And in the event that some of our people would like to touch base with you, where could they find you?
My website is a great way to do that. It's empowerwellness.com. That's EMPOWER wellness.com. I'm also on Facebook, Erin Tracy, and I don't mind if you send me a direct message. I also have a page for my business, which is, I believe the Facebook page is Empower Wellness with Erin Tracy or something like that. And then I have a YouTube channel as well, where I haven't been that active lately, but there's a lot of great information there about the application of Qigong in your life and how this attention with intention practice to keep evolving and keep growing.
Yeah. Well, that's excellent. And we look forward to getting touching base with you a little bit more, and maybe setting up some events, mutual events that can benefit others in that space. So absolutely.
I look forward to it.
Yes,
wonderful.
Indeed. So again, thank you so much. It's, you have filled this space with energy. And it's an energy of peace, and it's an energy of joy and resilience. And this is what we like to impart to our clients as well. And again, I want to thank you so very much, Erin, for being with us. Don't just climb your mountain, friends. Crush through it. We'll see you next time. Thanks again, Erin.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for watching Crush Your Mountain. If this is of any value to you, if you enjoyed the information, if it's even a bit entertaining for you, please Like and subscribe. It helps us with the algorithm. Leave a comment. We'd love to know what you think. Whatever content you'd like to see in terms of the directions of this channel, in terms of health, wellness, or personal growth, please drop a line. You can certainly reach me at hanksterog20@gmail.com, or you can just leave a comment. Either way, thanks so much.